A good day, dear students. We are introducing biostatistics for biological science students with the course code BIOSTA222. It is a 4-credit load course and will be taught by 3 of us. The first part of it, which is the introduction to biostatistics and the sampling methods, measures of central tendencies, will be taught by Professor Makud. The second part of it, on statistical distributions, will be taught by Professor Novo. I will be talking on linear relationships. There are 3 aspects of it, the linear relationships. We have graphical methods, where we'll be talking about graphs and charts. We have correlation and regression methods, and then we'll be talking about non-parametric statistics. So linear relationship is where I'm starting from today. And by linear relationship, we mean a class of statistical tests that describe and explain relationships between variables. This type of test will measure the degree of association or relationship between usually 2 variables. And there are 4 basic techniques for investigating the linear relationships. 4 basic techniques for investigating linear relationship between variables. The first one is graphical techniques, which will involve graphs and charts. The second technique will involve the use of correlation. The third one will be the use of regression. And the fourth one will be a group of statistical techniques that is called non-parametric. This will involve chi-square, paired and unpaired test, and then the rank test. They are all under the non-parametric. Starting from the graphical techniques, this is usually a set of techniques that gives a visual confirmation of effects between the variables. Visual means that they are presented in the form of graphs, and then the relationship can be seen on graphs, can be visualized. If there is effect of one variable on the other, it can be visualized via graphs or charts. This will give a careful look at data than using deep calculations. And that is why we said it is more visual, because when we take a careful look at the behavior of the variables on a graph or on a chart, we will be able to know if a relationship exists, if one can affect the other. And this takes different shapes. Graphs will take different shapes. Graphs and charts will usually take different shapes. For example, we have the line graphs, which could be single line or multiple line graphs. In a single line graph, you have a line joining points, just a single line running through points, and as the line is observed, we may be able to look at the relationship at those points that are being joined by the line. We could have multiple lines, meaning more than one line on one graph, on a graph, but they are all referred to line graph as long as a line is involved in joining points. The second part or type of graphs is the bar charts, which could come in the form of histographs or polygons. We'll be demonstrating all this in the course of this lecture. We also have the pie chart, that comes in the form of a cycle, 360 degrees, and certain measurements of the degrees are representing relationships, are representing the variables that we want to check their relationship. And on the basis of those 360 degrees on the cycle, we would be able to visualize the magnitude of the relationship on a chart. We also have the last one that is called the scattered diagram or the scattered graph, where points are created based on the way they occur, and a straight line could be drawn to see if these points have a relationship as scattered as they are. One of the first things we talk about is a line graph, and here is a figure 1 showing a line graph. And in this line graph, we have tried to show two types of it. One that is symmetrical, meaning that the mean, the median, and the mode are on one point. And what you have on the left side of the graph and the right side of it are equal or nearly equal. And that is why the mean, mode, and media are on the same line and usually at the center. That is a symmetrical line graph. We have the second one on this figure, the B part, which is the skewed distribution. It is skewed because the right side is not equal to the left side. One side is larger than the other, and a skewed graph could either be skewed to the left or skewed to the right. But what we have here on figure 1a is showing a skewed graph that is skewed to the right. And in this case, only the mode is at the center. The median and the mean are towards the right, as you can see them labeled on graph on figure 1b. So figure 1a is a symmetrical line graph, and this symmetrical line graph can also be referred to as a normal distribution. Normal distribution. But the skewed graph that I told you about, the figure 1b, is either skewed to the left or skewed to the right, but this one is skewed to the right, and that is why the mean and the median are found on the right. If it is skewed to the left, the mean and the median will shift position to the left, but the mode will remain at the center. Here are some of figure 2 is showing four different types of distribution. Figure 2a is a symmetrical distribution, but it is not joined by a line, it is represented by bars. You can see that at the center on figure 2a is a vertical line. To the left there are 3 other vertical lines, to the right there are also 3 vertical lines, meaning that the one at the center that is the tallest, it is the position of the mean, the median, and the mode. They are all on that line. And to the left and the right we have equal distributions. The B part of it is a skewed distribution, skewed to the left this time. And so the longest line is more to the right, and there are more vertical lines to the left. Figure C is another symmetrical distribution, but this time is an inverse. You can see it is curved inward, so it is inverse. The mean, the mode, and the median are still at the center, but at the lowest ebb. So the symmetrical can be a normal cone or an inverse cone. Skewed can be either skewed to the left or skewed to the right, as represented by these figures. The next point is there's a table here showing a 5-point Likert scale of scores. These are scores that are taken from 12 patients, indicating their level of anxiety. It could be patients, it could also be students. For example, 12 students are appearing for exams. If you measure their level of anxiety, they will not be on equal level. And it is assumed that these patients or students were measured, the anxiety level of these persons, these participants, were measured. And for each of them, patient 1 to 12, there are records. We want to make a table, create a table of frequencies. And from this table of frequencies, we want to create graphs. This is where we are coming from. We want to create a relationship between scores and frequencies of these 12 students. Remember, we said linear relationship is showing a relationship between variables. In this case, the variables are the scores, are the anxiety scores, and then the frequencies for each of them. So, for the scores, since it is scored on a 5-point Likert scale, we have indicated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for the frequencies, we want to see for each 1 point, how many scores were recorded, the frequencies of recording. For example, you could see patient number 4 had a frequency of 1. Patient number 4 here, where my cursor is the only one patient with a frequency of 1. Patient number 7 is the only one patient with a frequency of 2, as I'm indicating with my cursor. Number 7 has a frequency of 2, and that's the only one. For a frequency of 3, we have patient number 2 and patient number 10. So 2 of them, and so the frequency here is 2. For scale number 4, patient number 1, patient number 5, number 6, and number 11, meaning 4 has a frequency of 5. And for anxiety score 5, we have patient number 3 and patient number 12, patient number 8. So a frequency of 3. If you add the frequencies 1, 1, 2, 5, 3, it will amount to 12. And that accounts for the 12 patients that are involved, that were measured. Now we can go ahead. We can go ahead and develop a frequency distribution polygon of the scores. You can see number 1, the frequencies are on this axis, and the scores are on the horizontal axis, the x and the y axis. So we have from 0, 1, 2 up to 5, those are the frequencies, and then from 0, 1 to 5, the Likert scale scores. Now 1 and 2, they are on a frequency of 1 as we showed in the table, and here they are plotted with vertical bars to stop at 1. Score number 3, the frequency number 3, was recorded at 2 different levels, and so you would see it is stopping at frequency number 2. The scores of 4, which is the highest, recorded the frequencies of 5, and it is here recorded on 5. And then score number 5 recorded 3 frequencies, and here it is. So we can, these are bar charts that have been created on the basis of frequencies. But we can come to the center of each of these bar and put a dot, place a dot at the center of each of these bar and join all of them with a line. And that will give us a line graph. So we can create a line graph from bar charts. Here is a second example that was measured from accident victims at a summer camp, and their ER was measured. So we have, for this measurement took place for a period of 8 weeks, week 1, 2 through week 8. And for each of the weeks, frequencies of recording were noted. And for each of the frequencies, we can calculate them into percentages. And all you do when we calculate them into percentages is to take the frequency, which is 1 here, divide by 10, and then over 100. And that will give us these percentages that are recorded on the right hand side of this table. The idea is not just the percentage, calculating the percentages, but we want to see a relationship on a histogram. And so we're now using those figures from the table to plot another frequency distribution. You can see from the table that the highest score was in week. The highest frequency was in week 2, which was a frequency of 3. It means 3 accidents occurred in week 2, accounting for 30%. All the other weeks, from week 1 to week 8, apart from week 2, we had a frequency of 1. We can put this information, like I said, on a graph, on a bar chart. The difference between this chart and the previous one is that for this one, the bars are linked, and this is a histogram. The first one, the bank stood alone, and that is the polygon. So here, for these frequencies, you can see the highest is in week 2, and that is representing 3, the frequency of 3, which we transformed, we converted to percentage, and it gave us 30%, and that is the highest week where we had the level of the highest level of accidents. And so this shows off a visual relationship, like we said at the beginning, that for all the other weeks a record of 111 all through, or 10%, and only in week 2 that we can see it visually here, giving us a frequency of 3. Like we did in the previous graph, we joined the center. We took the center of each of the bar on the chart. We put a point on the center of each of it and join with a straight line, as we're seeing here. This means that every point is joined at the center with a dot and a straight line to join all the points. And so it gives us a line graph. If we remove all the bars, you won't see any bar again. What you see is a line graph. Here it is demonstrated here, and we can calculate the area under the graph. So the next figure is a pie chart. I told you the pie chart is a graphical representation that is on a circular form. Here is a cycle that is calculated on the basis of 360 degrees, 360 degrees. And each of these segments represent this one. We said these are nematodes habitats. This pie chart is representing the habitat of nematodes. And there are 4 different habitats that are represented here. We have the marine habitat, which is represented by a blue color. That is the beauty of pie charts. Colors are used. The marine habitat. We have the free living soil nematodes, or freshwater living nematodes, those that live freely in soil, and those that live in freshwater. They are represented here. And we have the plant parasitic nematodes, and we also have the animal parasitic nematodes. The yellow segment here is representing the animal parasitic nematodes. The green segment is plant. I think the choice of color was strategic. Plants are green, so the green color represents the plant nematodes. The free living is represented by a red color here, free living nematodes, and the marine. Now, I told you that graphs and charts give us a visual, they give us the opportunity to make a visual relationship, to create a visual relationship. Here I cannot see the number of degrees, but I can see that the blue segment is half of the entire of this chart. And so it gives me 50% of the entire chart, meaning that the marine nematodes are more. They represent 50% of all the wall nematodes. And we can also see visually, even with that measurement, that the red representing the free living or the soil nematodes is next in size, which represents 25%. And we can also see that the animal parasitic, which is represented by yellow, is next, and the plant parasitic nematodes has the smallest segment. And so all of these segments, even with that measurement, we can create a visual image. We can look at it and say there are more marine nematodes, followed by soil free living nematodes, and then animal parasitic nematodes and plant parasitic nematodes. This gives us a visual relationship. But we can also do the calculation on the basis of calculating the angles of each of these segments. For example, this is already half. The marine segment, followed that I'm indicating with my cursor, is already half. Visually, it gives us half. But if we take a protractor and put at the center and measure this angle, because it is half of 360, it's going to give us 180. And if we indicate 180 over 360 times 100, it will give us 50%. That is where we are getting this 50%. If we take this measurement of the red and calculate, we measure this angle, we can put the size of this angle as measured by our protractor, and then we use our compass to measure this side, and then we put the size of the angle that we have measured here, the compass, and then we divide it by 360, and that is where we are going to get the percentage of the number of the percentage number of nematodes that are represented by this. And this is how all of these percentages were calculated and determined. So for linear relationships, I have told you it is about graphs and charts. We have seen the different graphs, line graphs. We have also seen the chart represented by a pie chart. There are also different other forms of graphs and charts that I will require you to explore and add to the ones we have given. So this lecture is an introductory lecture to introduce you into linear relationships. And so we stop here, and I look forward to, in the next lecture, asking you the other line and the other graphs and charts that you have been able to discover by yourself. Thank you for listening. We meet in the next class.